Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I am Sophie.
And today we're going to talk about something that Sophie helped me change in my life. I'm still far from perfect in it, etc. But man, if you guys could see where I was before. And that is how to keep yourself healthy, keep your nutrition kind of balanced and at least in the right direction, even when you're busy, even when you're traveling, even when you aren't at home and have all the time in the world to make your food.
Or your tools or your normal prep time and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this episode, it's pretty simple. The messaging, it's, figure out healthy swaps, make sure that you're prepared, use the tools that are out there, and sharing some of those tools. And I think even though it's a simple message, it's important to get it out there for people that maybe are just starting out on a healthy journey. Maybe you are healthy when you're at home, but when you travel, you just get totally thrown off. When you're in an airport, you get totally thrown off. When you're at a concert, you get totally thrown off. Whatever it is, when you're outside of your comfort zone of your home, you feel like you just fall off.
Yeah, and I think that's true for even some of the people that we know who are pretty good about it at home.
Yeah.
Is once they're not in their home setting, when they don't have their fridge, they don't have their go-to juice place or whatever that thing is, they fall off.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I do that to a large extent. And it's totally different when I travel with you because you put such an emphasis on figuring out where there's a juice place, where there's this, where there's...
I mean, not just that. I put more time and energy into packing my snacks and food than I do my clothes.
You do pack a lot of snacks.
And it's not just like I pack a lot of snacks. Like I spend more energy and effort prepping and preparing that element so that I know however many hours we're going to be on the plane, I'm good. The kids are good. You're good. I know that if we have a layover, we'll be okay. I know that if we're going to be at this place for this long, okay, we're going to be out of our element. We might not find a juice bar. We might not find a health food store. I make sure that there's a bar per person per day or trail mix or, whatever it is. There's all kinds of different things you can bring that are non-perishable, but at least help you to feel a little healthier.
Were you always like that?
I think so.
You always prepped?
I mean, since I started my healthy journey, so since I was maybe 18, I would make sure to always have snacks on hand. And yeah, I think in college it really started because in high school, my mom bought food for me and handled food for me. But once I got to college, I really had to take that into my own hands. And at that point I was vegan. So it was really specific. I had to make sure I always had snacks on hand or I would just be hungry.
Yeah. Now
it's different. I'm more of a flexitarian, and that's really important to me to be more flexible and to teach my kids to be flexible. But now I'm not intimidated at all ever to go to any restaurant. I can find something healthy everywhere. But that took time to cultivate and learn that I don't have to be freaked out. I can make my own stuff up. I can swap things out and make things slightly healthier. And I think that's the point, is not being a stickler and not being so stubborn. Luckily I don't have celiac and neither do the kids, neither do you. We're not lactose intolerant.
Do you want to explain what celiac is for anybody listening who doesn't know?
Yeah. Celiac is when I'm obviously not a doctor, but from what I understand, it's when you're hypersensitive to gluten. So you have
to the point where you literally have a massive allergic reaction if you eat it.
Right. And that looks different to different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have some friends who are celiac.
Yeah. My best friend is celiac, and I have a lot of other friends that are super sensitive to gluten. And, I think also I'm on one side of it where I feel like I've gone from one extreme to the other. And I was 100% organic at a given time. I was 100% raw vegan at a certain point. I was 100% X, Y, Z. I did all sorts of different diets and plans. And I think now I'm at a much more moderate, balanced place as a mother, as a person who I know I need to be more balanced than extreme. Extremes don't work for me. Rules don't work for me. I just want to rebel. I'm not happy. I just don't feel good and don't feel content.
Yeah, I don't think that works only with food for you.
Right.
I think in general, you just don't do well with like strict rules. Period.
No, but I didn't realize that with food.
Yeah.
So I would realize that as a person. I knew I wasn't good with rules, but then with food, I just kept getting stuck in these things. Like, okay, I'm 100% vegan. Okay, I'm gonna cleanse for 2 weeks straight and not eat a single X, whatever it was, or just really extreme stuff with food. And then finally, after having Kai, I just really found a balance, and I was like, you know what? It's okay to have real sugar sometimes. You know what? It's okay to have a little bit of like cream in my coffee when I'm out.
Moderation in all things, right?
Moderation in all things. And it's made me a happier person. I've been happier with my body in the last few years than ever. And it's not a coincidence that I let myself off the hook and I let myself enjoy my food more and really be connected to the joy of all of it.
Did you find that you were really guilty before? Like when you wouldn't?
Oh, yeah. All the time. I was always in trouble with myself. I was always in trouble. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like,
because you would eat something you're not supposed to, or you would even want something you're not supposed to have.
Yeah. And it was so not a big deal. Like, it was like I was hungry and I wanted an extra whatever, and I would beat myself up about it. Or too much almond butter, or, things that are just ridiculous.
Not too much almond butter.
I mean, really, though, it felt so real in the moment. And
totally.
That's the disorder.
I'm laughing because now you eat like almond butter by the tablespoon.
Yeah, and I did then too. But then there was guilt. Now there's not.
That's a cool message. I like that, right? The behavior stayed exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's just the way you feel about it that is different. And now you're happier with yourself.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is we all know, I know this, everybody listening, you'll wake up one day and you feel great. And even about the way you look and the way you feel. And then you wake up the next day and you feel terrible. There's something, you feel fat, you feel skinny.
Nothing has changed. You weigh the same amount.
Nothing has changed.
You look the exact same in the mirror. You look the exact same to everyone else as you did the day before, but you're in a place where you're stuck.
All in your head.
Mm-hmm, it's all in your head. And the same thing with this, I think the guilt, I also just had to realize that I have an appetite, and not to feel embarrassed or try and pretend that I don't. I was, I grew up on set. I grew up on commercial sets with models, and I was like the only one that ate. I was the only one that like had a body and wasn't like thin as a rail, and it's an adjustment. Like, oh, like I'm very fit, but I definitely have some body fat on there, and I definitely have some curves, and I've got a booty, and I'm grateful for all of that. But then I always wanted to like shrivel up and shrink. Like I wanted to be just like the other models. I wanted to be just like the other girls. I wanted to be like the girls in the magazines. I wanted to be taller. I wanted to look like my sister. There's all this stuff where I was like trying to be someone else other than who I am. And meanwhile, there are people wishing that they had my body. And like, what am I doing? Beating myself up every single day, not eating things that bring me pleasure, not eating for my body type, not eating for my appetite, trying to pretend I'm someone that I'm not. It killed me. And it ruined all pleasure and all play and all fun, always.
Yeah, so you told me a while ago that you actually eat for fuel, at least to a large extent. We have this thing a lot because I'm so particular about like temperature and texture, and I can't eat sandwiches if the stuff's been sitting there for a couple of hours and it's soggy. And you have told me before that as long as in your head it's the right stuff and it's good for you and it's nutritious and it's going to build your body appropriately, that's kind of how it programs internally that you like it. You like food that is good for you.
Yeah, and I like both. I really like pleasurable food and going out to a really nice meal. But for the most part, the majority of my day is spent fueling my body with the right stuff. And if my smoothie doesn't taste amazing, at least I know there's like 75 ingredients in there that are going to make me strong and sustain my energy levels and all of that.
What do you think has allowed you to shift? Were you always like that? Were you just were able to do something because you thought it was good for you versus because you enjoyed it?
I enjoy it because it's good for me.
Yeah.
It's just the association. Now, again, it's all the way you look at things. I enjoy a kale salad because it's good for me. And those last few bites, I may not want it, but I'm like, it's so good for me.
Yeah. So I think that's a really important kind of lesson, even going into this idea of how do you keep that up? So we're going to interview Courtney Swan, who's Tove Lo's nutritionist and travels with her all over the world and tries to keep this band of musicians healthy in any town.
And she gets
Earth.
creative. She looks on Yelp. She asks people for local suggestions, and she does her research, and she does it, and she handles it for everyone on the crew. And there really isn't excuses. I mean, yeah, I'm a mom. I'm about to be a mom to 3 kids. And I pack food for you every time, and it's like, that's 5 people now I'm going to have to be responsible for, but it's with pleasure. So it'll take me a little bit longer. The way we make the kids' lunches, like, there's plenty of parents just buying a hot lunch for their kids or throwing packaged foods in their lunch, and that's just non-negotiable to us. And luckily we go to a school where that's sustained, but it starts at that age.
Yeah.
And cutting corners just isn't a possibility. And yet there's a balance. And yet we go to In-N-Out as a treat once a month, and they have French fries and a hamburger and on real bread and all of that, and they'll have challah bread on a Friday, and it's straight up gluten. And I think that that's important. At a birthday party, I really make sure, we pre-eat before we go to birthday parties. When I take them to birthday parties, they have full bellies. They have already eaten my food. They're good. So by the time they get to the party, they aren't ravenous. They don't need 4 pieces of pizza. They'll have half a piece and then put it down.
Yeah.
They'll have 3 bites of cake and put it down.
Sometimes they have pizza, but even for pizza, like you said, we pick the nicer option. So
right, I'm just saying at a birthday party, though, we don't really
you don't
always
have that choice.
We don't have a choice. It's someone else's food. And because we're not that rigid and that strict, we make sure that they get to enjoy themselves. I want them to grow up having a balance, not being so extreme that they don't know what it's like to have real candy or real sugar or real pizza.
Oh, sure. And then you end up kind of wishing for and fantasizing about what it would be able to be like to have cake if you never get to have cake.
Exactly. You never get to have the normal stuff. Then you start to fantasize about it being something so much better than what it really is. And then you have this weird idea and this weird notion of what that junky food is, and that you start to make it more beautiful.
So a couple of quick lessons before we get into this interview. One of the things that I'm really hearing is, if it is possible for you to slowly create the shift of, oh, wait, I get to enjoy the things that are good for me. I've been able to do that. Like, I've seriously cut down on my sugar intake. And as you know, I was using more artificial sweeteners, but then I learned what that does to your gut and the bacteria in there. And I started slowing down really on that. So now I have, like in my coffee that I have every day, I pretty much go with no sweetener, which would have been unimaginable for me a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And because I've been with you, I've made other small adjustments over time, where now they become massive adjustments 10 years later.
Over time. And I think that's the thing. It's little things, like, yes, the people in Tove Lo's band, they're all going to have fast food a few times, but it's Courtney's job to make sure that some of the time they're getting lots of juice and lots of fresh stuff. And
even if they're having the fast food, if you have the fast food and a green juice with it, it's better than or water soda with it instead of Diet Coke. Like, I think what you've taught me over time is, don't make the goal so freaking crazy. Be realistic. And have fun. If you like having fries from In-N-Out, do that, but bring them home and have your own salad with it. Right. Like there's the Whole30, there's a paleo diet, there's all these things. And I think for people to play around with what they like and then find a solution that works for their bodies and that they can maintain long term, so they don't get caught in that guilt, shame, and then being right on track kind of cycle that just keeps repeating is really, really important. And so I think what's cool about this interview is you get to see what it's like at the extreme. Like, nobody listening right now travels the way that these people travel. You know, they're in a different city every day of the week,
they're
places
not
they don't
sleeping
know,
well,
all that kind of stuff. And if they can figure out a way to do it, then all of us can. And there's some really, really cool tools in there, plus some really weird stories about our travel habits. Like you sleeping at the foot of an international flight on a 747.
Heck yeah. Mama's got to do what mama's got to do.
Sophie's got no shame on almost any level.
Nope.
So enjoy this. Pay attention. Obviously, always send us questions if you've got anything you want us to talk about or anybody specific you want us to interview. And we would love it if you leave us a review, tell us what you like about this, and kind of communicate with us. This is part of the main reason we do this.
Give us some love.
Yep.
You can email us at
info@ignited.com.
Thanks, guys.
See you on the other side.
Enjoy. This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
All right. Welcome to our interview. Today, we've got Courtney Swan.
Yes, we do.
And Soph, you've known Courtney for a while.
Yeah. We run in the same circles.
You literally run in circles?
Yeah. Fitness circles.
Yeah, in the health
Health and wellness circles in LA too. And Courtney has an amazing and inspiring Instagram, Real Foodology, and she's also Tove Lo's nutritionist. How dope is that? Yeah.
Oh, I know.
She's
She's the best.
That's got to be a cool job.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's very rewarding too.
So I love, because when Sophie told me about you and kind of wanting to meet you, and it all sounded really, really cool. And one of the things that I love is that, I mean, it's so funny to me to think, remember like the rock star version in the 80s?
Yeah.
Where the whole thing would be like they would just get wasted drunk and mess up hotel rooms and like throw shit out the window?
Yeah.
I love that now the new standard is they have a healthy nutritionist that travels with them.
I know. It's pretty crazy, the change.
Like our friend Trisha. Do you know Trisha?
I don't think so.
Your joyologist. She did the same thing with the band. She was like their
Jason Mraz, right?
Yeah. Green smoothie girl. Like she just, kept them healthy and sane and positive affirmations, and she did that for years. She was on tour with them. Now she has a baby, but
I want to meet her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So I gotta hear. I mean, for those of you who don't know Tove Lo, she's this. She's not even an up and coming musician anymore. She's been blowing up for the last year or two.
Yeah.
And doing really, really amazing things. And so you get to go on the road with her.
Yeah.
And can you walk us through that experience a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, just, you mean my day-to-day or kind of like what
how
I
do
do?
you...
Or...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm her nutritionist. I actually also work kind of as like a third hand for her. So like her personal assistant. Because, on the road, there's so many moving parts, like so many things going on. And so I kind of am there to, make sure that she eats really well. And I want to say too, like I do not define what she eats whatsoever. Like she has full range to do whatever, but I kind of go out and say, hey, I found this organic juice bar, or found this, smoothie or whatever, and this and that. And so I'm out like foraging, if you will.
I love it.
Healthy food.
You're like city foraging.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the modern foraging. For healthy food, and then when the show comes on, then I'll help her get ready and with wardrobe changes if she does that when she's on stage, and I'm just really kind of there as like a third hand kind of thing, and then obviously I have my master's in nutrition, so I'm there to help just make sure not only her but our entire crew. We travel with 12 people or 11 people right now. And I just make sure everyone is healthy and happy and, eats well on the road, which is hard to do.
And that's so important, too, when you're on the road. You're already, not sleeping in your own bed. You're already working weird hours. You're already up late nights at these shows. You're probably dehydrated. You're working too hard. Your stress levels are through the roof. So keeping things baseline, like at least eating well,
Absolutely.
can really make you heal faster and recover faster from those types of experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and just, because it's such a fast-paced lifestyle that, like you said, there's so much stress and everything involved that at least if you're like eating well and taking care of that aspect, it makes such a world of a difference for your energy and just, your overall like quality of living.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so you've got to take care of all these people. You're constantly traveling around. I'm assuming that you've got to have these kind of standards and almost kind of like rituals that you yourself have to follow just to keep that up. What do you do? Like, you're coming into a new city. What's the thing you do?
Okay, so the first thing I do is, and this sounds so like just simple that I almost don't even have to explain it, but I'll get on Yelp and Google, and my keyword is I type in organic, because that's like the one thing, because I've realized that even if I don't necessarily find an organic restaurant, if you just type in organic, every juice bar, health market, whatever it is, will all show up in a mile range near you. And so that's kind of my first thing. And then what I do is I'll look at the reviews and kind of see, and I'll make a list. And what I do for our crew is I actually, I send out an email the night before, sometimes the morning of, for whatever city that we're at. And I'll literally break down and say, all right, these are all the healthy food spots I found. These are, coffee place nearby, this and that. And I tell them exactly how far away it is, if you can walk an Uber, and give them like a whole resource.
So you just like map it out for them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I love it because it's super fun for me, because I would do that anyways if I was traveling, because that's kind of just what I would do anyways.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for me it's fun, and then I've been told, from the people that I travel with, that they're just like, this is the best thing ever.
That's awesome.
So,
whenever we travel, Sophie does the same thing for sure.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like a little tour.
Yeah.
And it gives you a reason to go try new things, but it's at least in your realm of things you really want to try.
Exactly.
Not just like, oh, try this restaurant, you've got to go. And then you're like, like my stomach hurts,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know. And, so we actually just came back from Europe recently, and we stayed in Paris for a few days, and I ended up finding this juice place that they had food too, and they had like tonics and just all these amazing, like they had like spirulina mermaid nut milk that they made and stuff. And it was like my heaven. And I literally went there like every day. But it was so, I don't know, it was just cool because it's fun to find local places like that are really like inspiring, fun places to go, but they also have healthy food. It's kind of like a win-win.
And it makes you feel like when I'm traveling, I already feel pretty off balance.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to. Like, you're halfway
exactly.
across the world, or you're not sleeping in your own bed. Your habits are different. Your day-to-day is different.
You just flew 12 hours.
Exactly.
And your digestion's
but
off.
being at a juice bar, like I've been in like the most sketchy, weird juice bars all over the world.
Yeah.
And it just makes me feel like at home.
Yeah.
For even that 20 minutes, and then I get to eat the thing, and it makes me feel even more at home, and then it continues, and then you go back.
When we were just in Israel, we had, remember that hunt? So Sophie will put messaging out through social media, kind of like, where should we go?
Yeah.
And obviously the people she knows are connected to this world, so then they'll give advice. And so in Tel Aviv, in the middle of Tel Aviv, there's a shuk, and the shuk is kind of like
outdoor
what everybody
market.
now thinks of as a market, but it's the old school outdoor markets.
Yeah.
The ones you see in movies all the time. So in Israel, there are for sure ones that are still operating. People literally go shopping there. That's what they do.
So cool.
So everybody told us there's this juice bar. Now,
No address.
nothing. They're like, it's at the entrance to the shuk. Now, it's got two entrances, right? Because one on one side and one on the other.
Yeah.
We have no idea where this thing is. And there's people selling everything everywhere. So we were walking around, like 15, 20 minutes. We were ready to give up on it. And then somebody goes, oh, yeah, it's over there. They kind of start pointing us in the right direction. We finally found it. It's a hole in the wall is the best explanation for it. That closet.
Teeny tiny, yeah.
It's got two employees in it. It's
The owner. When we say employees, it's the owner and her helper.
and like no menu, zero menu.
Nope.
That's amazing.
And you know what? One of the best juice bars we've ever been to, because it was one of those places they just want to connect with you.
Yeah.
So you sit down, they go, hey, what's going on? And they talk to you, and they give us like a 45-minute ritual of tonics and things, and put this in your throat, because I was actually getting sick.
Yeah.
It was the biggest gift ever. And I was born in Tel Aviv. My entire family
so cool.
lives there. Not a single person I know knows about this place.
Yeah.
And so you find these really magical things when you travel and when you get this advice from people around.
Yeah.
That,
And like you said, it's it's a local place, so that's where the locals go.
Exactly.
But it's the type of locals that if you lived there, you'd probably hang out with. That's why I like it. Like, I find yoga studios, I've worked out in the sketchiest, weirdest places, like traveling with my dad through Europe and like Googling some gym, and it's like the weirdest situation, but like you find people that you would maybe want to be around, you know, and like you attract the right same kind of people.
Exactly. And I love that too, because like you said, so you'll meet those kind of people, and then, you know, you end up in a conversation, and then they're like, oh, you have to try this restaurant, or you have to go do this or whatever, and it's just completely in line with, you know, your lifestyle. And yeah, it's really cool. It's definitely a good way to.
And how often are you, when you're not on tour, what are you doing? What are you up to?
So I have my blog, Real Foodology, and yeah, I mean, when I'm home, my blog and my Instagram is my full-time job, but you know, I've been so busy with Tove this year that I have barely been home at all.
Yeah.
So it really has been full-time with Tove right now.
Yeah. That's
But
exciting. That's
it's
fun.
really exciting.
Yeah.
I love it. I really love it.
Do you find that you can sleep anywhere?
At this point, yes.
Yeah, because I'm a good sleeper.
At this point, I love it.
I can sleep in airports. I can sleep curled up on the bottom of the plane, like at the feet of the plane.
Yeah,
like
I've done that.
anything.
Sophie is not exaggerating. She says
No.
she can sleep anywhere.
No, anywhere at any time. Right now, I could take a nap sitting up in this chair. Like,
Oh yeah.
Sophie does this funny thing on planes where, because we have the two kids, so
I have a whole system
we try to get all the seats in a row.
in the middle.
It doesn't always work. If we go on like a jumbo, you get actual 4 seats in the middle, and then we're good because the whole family's in one.
Yeah.
But typically, what ends up happening is it's a 3-in-1 situation. But so I take the one, and then Sophie will put the kids to sleep, so because two kids can use
Like
3
tandem,
seats,
like they like
head to toe kind of a thing.
Oh yeah.
And then she'll lay down on the ground right in front of them.
I lay the blankets down every blanket because they can share one. So I take the rest of the blankets and lay them down. I put one over my body because there's a cold draft under.
Yeah.
I have a whole system. I put earplugs in, face mask, put the blanket, cocoon it around my body, and then curl up. And it's the perfect length. Like,
That is amazing.
it's the best.
I'm taking
so you
mental
don't get
notes.
all that. You don't get all that gross like plane air because you're cocooned into the blanket.
Yeah.
And you've got earplugs in, so you don't hear a damn thing.
And my wife has no shame. No shame. None.
I love the no shame game. I don't either.
It's kind of like, because I look and I'm walking by, and again, one of my things is fighting shame, but that's because I have a lot of it over time. And so I kind of look down, she's like scrunched up, her face is like this, and she's does not care.
I don't give a fuck.
Doesn't
You're like,
care
oh, my
at all.
beautiful wife.
It's
I'm like,
the
I
coolest
smashed
thing
on the
ever.
floor.
I'm the one that's gonna land with like white eyes, ready to go no matter what time zone we're good. Everyone else is yawning. I'm like, I'm good to take on the day.
You're like, let's
I
find
slept.
this juice bar.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's really, really funny and really great. So what is Real Foodology? You said right now you were Tove, and so that's taking a lot of your time. What's your goal with Real Foodology? Where are you trying to take it? What do you want it to be?
So my ultimate goal is I really want to do a TED Talk. My biggest thing is, so I want to backtrack a little bit. So I actually just finished my master's in nutrition like 2 weeks ago.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
And then originally my ultimate goal was I wanted to have my own practice with clients. But through this program, actually, we were thrown into where we had to have mock clients, essentially. And just after doing that for 2 semesters, I just realized that it wasn't fully in line with what I really wanted to do. Because my ultimate goal is I just want to reach as many people as I possibly can with my message. I feel like, and I just feel like if I'm just sitting in an office, and this is not to say that if I impact one life that it doesn't matter, because I feel like if I impact one that it does. But I feel that I really, I want to reach as many people as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is I'm very into educating as far as nutrition goes. And that isn't even necessarily just like what you should eat, this and that. My thing is more the food industry, honestly, because I feel like so many people are in the dark, and it's definitely changing, and people are finally waking up to it. But there's still so many things that are unknown to the mass general public, and that's something that I feel so passionately about.
That's great. I mean, I can totally relate, right? I've been helping people since 2010 when I graduated. I for sure have been helping people since then, so about 7 or 8 years. And the one-on-one thing is really exciting, and the kind of change you get to have with that one person.
Yeah.
but it's so limited because
Absolutely.
how many people can I see a day, right? 6 if I'm just kind of coming up to
Max
here, 8 if
out.
I'm going to kill myself. And then you can only do that a couple of days a week, 3, 4, 5 days a week. And you come up against this limit.
Exactly.
And when you really are driven by creating big change, it feels stifling.
It does.
To some extent. And
Absolutely.
I love teaching. Do you get to teach in any environment?
No, I would love to at some point. It's like I said, I'm so busy with Tove right now. I haven't even had the time to really start doing anything else that I want to yet, but it's definitely something I would love to do.
Yeah, teaching is a lot of fun. And especially if you get to do it to groups of people who are really excited about the topic already anyway.
Yeah.
And then I always say, through a relatively small exposure, like a 2-3 hour workshop or a class or something like that, you might not get people the same place you would get them if you were actually coaching them. You might get them 50% of the way there.
Yeah.
40, 60. But you got 300 people there. Whereas before, that 3 hours would have maybe been spent on 2 or 3 people.
Exactly.
And so I think, and for the kind of things that we're trying to do, we need wholesale change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and exactly like you were saying, I just feel like it's such a widespread epidemic right now, what we're seeing with our food industry and just how corrupt it is, that we need to get the message out to as many people as possible.
What do you mean by corrupt? Go into that more a little bit more.
I just mean like as far as, we're not eating real food anymore, and we're seeing this mass epidemic of, autoimmune disorders, digestive issues, cancer, diabetes, like all of these things that could be, for the most part, be completely prevented in the first place. And there's now starting to become a dialogue about it, but there's still so much that needs to be talked about. And a lot of it goes back to our food. And I'm not saying that it's not all food, or that it's all food, that there's not other factors, because there absolutely are, like environmental toxins and pesticides and all that. But our food plays such a huge role in it.
Yeah.
And it's so, it's all about the money with these major food corporations. They're more concerned about their bottom line than they are about providing us with healthful food.
It's weird. Sophie and I talk about this a lot. I feel like we talked about it in Israel, walking from the shuk. I remember this. But so you go to this place and it's a market. I don't know why this is coming up for the third time now in this talk, but
I love it.
all this fresh fruit and vegetables. I mean, in Israel, it's
everywhere.
all over the place. Fresh fruit and vegetables, juices.
It even
fresh fruit.
tastes different. Like it's probably not even organic, but it is. Like they don't make a
'cause
big
they don't
deal
use
because there's no
pesticides.
option.
Not in the same
It's all
way.
it
They
is.
definitely don't use this big, massive conglomerate sort of food
Yeah.
production.
Like their watermelon tastes so sweet and so fresh and so juicy and so crunchy, the way that I remember it as a kid.
Yeah.
But even more sweet. I mean, the apple, like everything tastes better. And why?
Yeah, so we were talking about it and we're walking, and look, I understand. I'm a science guy, right? So I totally get why we needed preservatives.
Yeah.
And why we needed to cure meats and all this kind of stuff, right? You go back 200, 300, 400 years. If you want to get on a boat and get somewhere else, you have to cure your stuff or preserve it, pickle it, do something.
You can't hunt on a boat.
Well, you can hunt. I mean, you can try to fish, but it's going to be hard. You don't know when you're going to come across food. So you have to take food with you, and it wouldn't last. Like meat would last 3 days, 2 days, barely.
Yeah.
So you got to do something to it, like beef jerky or something like that, to make it last longer. You got to pickle vegetables so that it can last. Totally get it.
Yeah.
But we've got these things now. We have one at home. I think most people have one. It's called a refrigerator.
Exactly.
If you really want to keep your shit for a while, there's a freezer. Ours is right under the refrigerator. We don't even have to go to the outside ice box anymore.
Yeah, it's right there.
It's right there. So like you get meat or you get vegetables, you put them there, and then they keep.
Yeah, it's a crazy concept, right?
Right? And yet we're all still sold on this fucking like
Fast
get it
food
from a can and like it can like
pour it from a box.
If your food lasts for a year on a shelf,
It's a problem.
that's a fucking problem.
You don't want that in your body.
Yeah.
And so that's a thing that I see more and more of, kind of how do we educate people that you want the kind of food
That goes bad.
that goes bad in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Because that food, why is it going bad? It's going bad because of bacteria. It's going bad because of all these things that you kind of want to bring in your system. All those talks we heard today about the biome and, all this. We've gotten to this weird backwards kind of place where we're trying to
We're trying to sterilize everything.
Sterilize. That's a great word for it. We're trying to sterilize everything. And what we know, and hospitals know this, by the way, really, really well, you over-sterilize, and now your immune system sucks, and
Yeah.
now all these other parts of who you are aren't functioning the way they're supposed to.
Well, exactly. And then on top of that too, then you create superbugs because I mean nature is smart. It's always going to outsmart us. So, for example, when we're using too much antibiotics or using too much of the antibacterial soap, it all it does is make these bugs come back stronger.
Yeah. It's there's a word for it. What's it called? It's called evolution. Right? You get if there are 10 billion bugs, 10 billion of a certain bacteria, and you use something to kill them, and you killed 9 billion.9, guess what? That last 100 million, they're coming to fucking get you.
Yeah.
Because now the
They're coming back
antibiotic
with
that you
vengeance.
have doesn't do shit to them.
Exactly.
And all your weapons are no longer working. And people have a hard time kind of just resolving all this stuff.
Yeah.
Plus, bacteria is now just a bad word, even though hopefully probiotics and some of this other stuff is bringing back the notion that bacteria is everywhere.
Yeah.
Bacteria is
It's
necessary.
in our bodies.
Yeah.
It's on our skin. It's everywhere.
And we need it.
We need it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
Do you get into this kind of stuff with your clients, or do you do the processing for them and just provide them with the things they need?
I mean, it really totally depends on the client, to be honest. But I usually try to throw in a lot of that kind of stuff because I really think that it's intertwined with being healthy. I mean, not even think, I know that it is. So kind
The
of
reason why behind things.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
am I eating this? Why is this good for me?
Exactly.
As opposed to that other thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I just get super nerdy and excited about stuff, so I'll go off on like a tangent,
Well,
and they're like,
education is power.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
powerful. It empowers them, and when they feel empowered, then they want to make those decisions when you're not there.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of just like, oh, Courtney left this in my fridge.
Yeah, it's like,
Which I've
what do I
had.
do with
Like
this
I've
now?
had plenty of clients that are like, well, when you come, I eat really well. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, you're like,
crap.
damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, telling stories from the road is a tough one sometimes, but forget necessarily Tove, but I want to hear about an experience you've had with somebody where you enter the picture and then you saw like magnificent change through nutrition.
Okay, so I love telling this story. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like mind-blowing, magnificent change or anything crazy like that, but and this goes back to Tove. So when I first started touring with her, she had probably already been touring in the US for maybe a year at that point, maybe a little bit less. And her whole band, for anyone that doesn't know this, is Swedish. So it's her and she has 3 guys in her band and they're all Swedish. And so, when they came to the US, they were like a little bit shocked by the way that we eat because Sweden is very different. That's a whole nother conversation, but they really regulate their food in a great way, I think, because they don't allow a lot of the horrible things that we allow in our food here. But so when they first started touring here, they all kind of like gained some weight and they were like not feeling that great. And so when I started touring with her, I'll never forget this. The last day of our first tour that I did with them, her mom came out to show, or both of her parents, they flew out from Sweden. And the first thing that her mom said to her, she pulls her aside and she goes, "What have you guys been doing?" And Tove was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "You guys all look so healthy.
Wow.
You look amazing. You guys all look like you like lost a little bit of weight." And they were never like big or anything anyways, but and she turns to me and like pulls me over and she's like, "My mom was just asking me, about all this." And she's like, "It's all Courtney." She's like, "Courtney just came out and literally all she did was just make sure that we had healthier options on the bus. And, we ordered from healthier restaurants." And she was like, "The last time we came home from tour, none of us could button up our pants. And now, like we all feel great. We feel light. We have energy again." And, and for musicians, I mean, sometimes they're on stage for an hour and a half every single night.
Yeah.
And it's really taxing and, draining. And so for them, like they were just like, "We have energy now. We feel great." And that was a really special moment for me. It made me feel really good. But
That's awesome.
Makes it all worth it.
yeah,
they felt the difference, and not only that, but people around
People
them who
noticed
didn't
it.
know what was going on.
exactly. Yeah.
That's
It was
really cool.
What's one of the biggest struggles you've had in the last, I don't know, in your adult life?
Ooh, one of my biggest struggles?
In anything?
It doesn't even have to be food related. Just
Yeah.
Okay, so, to be honest, I've really struggled with vulnerability. And I was actually talking to you guys about this earlier because it's something I feel very passionate about now because it was something that I honestly didn't even really recognize was an issue for me. And it kind of ties into like intimacy as well. And I don't mean like literally like sexual intimacy. I just mean like being able to open up with people and like really be vulnerable and like feel okay and safe about it. And it was something that I really struggled with for a long time. And I more recently have been surrounded by a lot of people who are very vulnerable. And I started seeing that in other people and recognizing, one, that it was giving me permission to do it. And two, I just started seeing the power of it and realized like, okay, I'm not being vulnerable enough in my life, and started kind of trying to navigate and figure out ways that I could be.
Interesting.
So that was definitely something.
The cool thing about being vulnerable is that the more you are, the deeper, you can't ever go back.
Yeah.
So once you realize that you're not being vulnerable or authentic, kind of like those words are kind of thrown around at the same time, but if you're not, you feel it in yourself, and you feel kind of like, I'm being closed off, and that doesn't feel good. Like, I don't ever want to feel closed off. I don't ever want to put up a wall. I don't ever want to not be able to look at you in the eyes. And I can tell when I'm not looking at someone in the eyes and I'm not connecting on that level, on a soul level, that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You were saying you didn't pay attention to it before. What made you pay attention to it?
Well, to be honest, it was mostly being around Tove. When I first started working with her, she's a very open and vulnerable person. I mean, she cried in front of me one of the first times I ever met her, and I was like blown away by it, but in a way that I was like, I had so much respect for it. Because she, like, I always in the past, I'm like hiding my tears and like ashamed, anytime I cry. And I remember growing up being, very proud of the fact that like I was like, oh, I never cry, this and that. And then I started realizing, I was like, this is actually like not a healthy thing or like a cool thing to brag about, And so when I started kind of seeing her being so vulnerable around other people, it kind of made me take a step back and be like, wait, I'm not that way. And like, how is this affecting my relationships with people? And since I started making the effort to be more vulnerable in my life, my relationships with people around me have become so much stronger and better. I cannot even begin to explain the change it's made in my life and how cool it is.
Well, I'm going to make you explain more than you just did, but because that's amazing.
Powerful.
Isn't one of the coolest things the fact that when that switch flips for you and you start doing it, that all of a sudden other people who have been around you, who you thought had a perfect life or were always happy or were as fit as they wanted to be or had all the whatever it was, all of a sudden they feel more comfortable and they reveal their own vulnerability and pain and struggle to you, and you kind of go like, oh, all these things I was measuring myself against, they weren't even real. And by letting somebody else know that they're not real, finally we're actually having a real conversation.
Oh, I know. It is the best. It's like a weight is lifted because the thing is it opens doors for other people to then be vulnerable. It gives people permission essentially too, because then they're like, oh wait, this doesn't feel like scary anymore. It's like a safe place because this person's opening up about something, and then it's so cool too because then you realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
And you start admitting these things to your friends, and they're like, oh my God, me too, and you're like, oh. Okay, I'm not the only one suffering from this.
We're a lot less alone than we think. I think we're more supported most of the time than we realize, because it's like a habit to isolate ourselves with problems and sorrows and shame. And
there's this thing in psychology called the fundamental attribution error, and it's that when we look at other people and we see what they're doing, we assume it's because of who they are, and when we see ourselves, we assume it's because of our situation and our circumstances. So the example I always like to give is like if you're driving on the freeway and somebody cuts you off, you're like, asshole. They're just an asshole kind of driver.
Yeah.
If you're driving around, you're cutting other people off, you're like, I'm just in a hurry. I got to get to this place really, really fast. You see the reasons behind it.
Yeah.
And I think we do this really interesting things to ourselves in a flip way around our own self-esteem. So we judge other people by their circumstances. Pretty wife, nice house, beautiful car, must be incredibly happy and super satisfied with their life. Yeah. I see my insides, and I know that inside I don't feel perfect. Yeah. And I feel like I should work out more, and I don't have the six-pack I want, and I'm not driving the car I'm dreaming of. And so we look at them and we go, how does my life compare to their life? And what I've found is once you start being vulnerable with people, you find that we're all pretty much the fucking same.
Yeah.
And it releases this weight that is, it's so amazing how you just have to make the decision. It sounds so much easier than it really is.
Yeah.
You have to make the decision, and then you kind of have to
Show up
and keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I won't say that I don't fully still struggle with it. I mean, there's still times that it feels really scary. But the more you do it, the more you realize it's not scary, and
it's rewarding.
It is.
That's the thing, is it can still be scary.
Yeah.
For sure. But
Yeah.
it's so rewarding.
You just know what's coming on the other end. So you go, I mean, Sophie and I have this happen all the time. You know, when people ask us, how do we overcome the things that we've overcome, or how do we end up with the relationship we have right now? I said, work constantly. Like
like you work on yourself, you
Yeah.
work on the most important relationships. You have to.
Yeah. I mean, I now know for a fact that if I have a thought that it scares me to share with Sophie, I need to share it with Sophie.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, it's going to create a distance between us. Because I'm going to keep carrying this thing that I keep building up this case of why Sophie shouldn't know. But if I say it right away, she's either going to be upset by it or not, but we're going to have a real conversation about it. And
Because
in the end,
carrying it around creates more of a weight than the thing itself. That's the same with
Exactly.
shame. But like with anything, with a secret, like thinking something, feeling something, just saying it and the right time for you when you're ready is so much better in the long run, which feels counterintuitive because you're like, why am I walking into pain?
Yeah.
But it's because on the other side of pain is strength and growth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and this woman was talking about how she was like, I've kind of accepted that in order for me to get fully everything I want out of life, that I kind of have to just like become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And that resonated so much with me because I feel like I have spent most of my life trying to avoid
it.
any sort of uncomfortable situation. But if I look back on all of the times that I was probably the most uncomfortable or the most scared or the most nervous, the outcome of that ended up being some of the most like amazing, almost like turning points in my life.
biggest growth ever comes from pain. I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's biggest growth comes out of pain.
Yeah.
And so if you open yourself up to it, you're opening yourself up to more growth. And there's going to be discomfort in the middle, but the discomfort is coming, whether you want it to or not.
You can avoid it, but it's just going to make it a bigger pain.
Exactly. You're gonna just be living in so much more pain, and you're gonna be carrying it around. Whereas
Self-created pain.
yes, whereas if you just face
Afflicted.
it, it's like scary and may feel bad for like a second, but then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait, this is awesome.
And I did that. Like I confronted that thing.
Exactly.
Or I said that thing. I'm strong enough to do anything and say anything and be myself,
Exactly.
no matter who's there.
yeah.
Very cool.
And the more you do it, the more it becomes easy and just kind of like second nature, you know?
It's like intuition. It's like you have to sharpen it, practice it.
Yeah. I like that.
So on that note, we asked 2 questions whenever you come on this podcast. One of them is, do you have a self-care ritual that you stick to, which, could happen when you're on the road to help balance you, or maybe when you get home after a long day, if you're feeling overwhelmed by life.
Yeah.
Or when you wake up in the morning, it can be anything.
Oh man, I would consider my exercise as a self-care thing. I try to get a workout in almost every single day, whether that be, a simple run on the treadmill or, I love going to Pilates classes. That, and then, I hate to admit that I've like kind of gotten off of this a little bit. I've been trying to get back is, for a long time I was doing just, a 5-minute guided meditation every morning. And I don't know, there's such a power in meditation, and I, for the longest time, was resistant to it. And then when I started doing it, I realized like how it really changed my whole mindset for the day. And so that's something I usually try to do every morning. So
Perfect. Yeah.
Very cool. And then on the flip side of that, so that's kind of what calms you and grounds you. What's something that gets you ignited? What's something that just drives you forward and pushes you and motivates you?
I think it's my desire, what we were talking about earlier, my desire to reach people on a huge level, just about everything that I know, what we were talking about earlier with the food industry and just health and wellness in general, and all the information that we're finding out right now. There's just so much coming out right now in science, and I just feel like so much of it is not well known to the general public. And so anytime like I learn about something new like that, the first thing I think, and I get super fired up, is I'm just like, I want everybody to know this.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to,
Share.
I just
Share
want to share it with
knowledge.
everyone. It gets me really, really excited.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So glad to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so
amazing
much.
to make the connection. Thanks for coming. We'll be looking for great things from you, and
It's time for happy hour.
we'll get a
Yes.
peek on
Now.
the road.
Happy
Happy
hour.
hour time.
Happy hour.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.